since after, maybe toward the end of turkey season, but kind of spur of the moment thing, and wanted to stop in and talk to everybody. We've got Zack Church with us, Fit Cop 5.
Yeah, buddy. How y'all doing?
And yeah, we've been came over, looked at some gear. It's talked me into some stuff that my wife's not going to be happy about. Novik's Hilo
yep.
stand, money on a tree for sure. If I'd have thought we'd left it on the tree and I'd shot out of it, but wasn't thinking. Shot some bow, did a little bit elevated heart rate shooting, and yeah, it's been a pretty good evening.
Yeah, a little competition.
But Zack is with us, and if y'all follow East Meets West, he was featured in their Mountain Buck Monday.
Yep.
And with his buck from this past year. And first off, I guess let's start this. I guess tell us who you are and when you got into hunting and what kind of hunting you're doing now. What style of hunting you're doing.
Okay. So my story's a little different than a lot of people. So I did start off pretty young, like a lot of people around here. Did deer camp and everything through high school, but played a lot of sports, so I hit and miss there. Did start archery hunting just to lengthen my season, because I was brought up just rifle hunting and then eventually muzzleloader, but started bow hunting just to have more season time, more time in the woods. Ended up falling in love with the archery in the process of that. And then once upon graduation, joined the military, left for a while, came back, and then hunted a little bit, and then got into the profession I'm in now, law enforcement, and then military too. Both those kind of got in the way, so I ended up getting out of hunting for a while, not because I wanted to, just out of necessity and everything. 2020, got back into it, got my first deer with a bow, and fell in love like way worse then.
Man, it's there is a intimacy to bow hunting. That's, I mean, deer, I love gun hunting too. Probably my second favorite season is black powder. I love muzzleloader hunting. But there's an intimacy in bow hunting that's not there with rifle hunting.
There definitely is.
You've got to be so into, and not saying there's not guys that aren't in tune with rifle. I mean, there are dudes out there that are crazy stupid with long guns.
Oh yeah.
But you have to have that intimacy and that knowledge with your bow, and you amp it up even more when you start hunting around here, when you're not hunting ag and you're hunting mountains and terrain and slopes, and just so much goes into it.
There is so much. You're seeing, getting to see which way the animal's looking, because it's so close. You know what I mean? Seeing which way their eyes are looking.
You're right. Yeah. So you started, and tell us about the deer that was featured in that story, because it's a pretty cool hunt from what I read. If anybody hadn't read it, talk us through how that went.
So that was pretty sweet. So like I said, I got back into it pretty heavy in 2020, and then I ended up going for the military. I had to go overseas for the entire hunting season of 2021, into 2022. So this season, when I come back last summer, I hit it pretty hard, and I tuned in my bow really well. Got new broadheads, like was ready to go. Got the Novik stand, got a saddle. I was in it hard. So I ended up putting hours and hours and hours in the stand with the bow, and ended up I was trying to find a good buck to start with, right? I had plenty of does walking underneath me and everything, but I was holding out, try to get a buck first, and then try to clean up the season, getting a few doe for me and stuff, which isn't the best way to do it, but that's the way I did it.
Yeah.
So I put in hours and hours in the stand and saddle, back and forth, testing both, and then never got one with the bow. Well, rifle season hit in, and me and a couple buddies went out with rifle multiple times, and didn't see anything bigger than I think a spike and maybe a fork. And it's just me personally, it's just not what I wanted to take.
Right.
And
nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, that's just it's my tag, my hunt. If you want to shoot a fork, I'll help you drag it out. But anywho, it was the second to last day before rifle season ended in Virginia, and went to a place that I used to do deer camp at when I was young. It's on public land on High Knob, and went to the parking area, hiked in about 2 miles to stand on my back, and I hiked in after daylight, and ended up, like I said, about 2 miles deep, about 2 ravines, like steep. I'm a lot like you, Zack. I like going up steep stuff and thick stuff.
Will gives me a hard time about that.
I know. So I've listened to other stories. He gets fired up because you like that thick, steep stuff. But I'm the same way.
Busting brush. That's what I like to do.
That's exactly what I did. I was busting brush, getting up that hill. So I ended up getting to the top of a pretty steep ravine. I had scouted that area the day before. I like to use Spartan Forge personally, and that's what I'd used. Yep. And I'd been listening to Bo Martonics, East Meets West. I'd been listening to a lot of his stuff and how to find the buck bedding and how to kind of hunt it and everything. So I hiked up that ravine where I scouted at, and found what looked to be a buck bed from my kind of inexperience with that. But then I found a small scrape and a rub, and I was like, okay, this is what it looks like. It's good slope is south slope facing to the north, with a south wind like we normally get during
west southwest.
Yep, and which is pretty prominent for us. So the wind was blowing in my face, and I was like, well, I either bumped him out of his bed or he's going to come back to it, one of the two. So I set up, seen a doe and a fawn down below me under the ridge, and couldn't hear them, and so I seen them go, and I was like, well, maybe there's a deer trail down there. So I stayed put, and then an hour from there I seen a big spike walk that same trail, and I was like, well, maybe I should move. But I was like, no, because this season I'd made a bunch of mistakes moving and bouncing around and everything just because I like to be mobile. And
you think that's? I wonder what causes that, because I've not. You're not the only one. I myself, if I for some reason I can sit in a tree and watch deer move through an area and say, man, I feel like I should get down and go hunt. Get in that tree, and you got to talk yourself out of it a bunch. And I've made that mistake a bunch of times and climbed down and ruined a hunt because of that.
Yeah. You're right. There's a time for it. Sometimes it pays off, sometimes it doesn't. Right. And that's why I like being mobile, so I like being able to move like that. And I very, very close tempted. I was like, no. I was like, just stay here, because I had the rifle. So I could shoot that distance, but I couldn't hear. So I had to keep my eyes that way, because they could walk through there. I never know they did. So I was having to keep my eyes on it. So I kept my eyes down that way, eating a snack, drinking coffee, normal stuff. And then about an hour goes by again, hadn't seen anything. I said, I've seen a deer every, the last 2 hours on the hour, or at the time. And I was like, so maybe another one's going to come through. So I'm looking down there at that trail, because I got a short window to shoot a buck in if that's where it comes through. And then I heard something. I was like, wait a minute, that's over here to the left. Look over, and there's a deadfall tree, big down tree, and I just seen tines bouncing on the other side of it like their steady buck walk pace, just coming straight at me I remember thinking, which way's the wind, and I remember it hit me in the face at the time. I could see him, and I was like, oh, I'm gold.
Yeah.
And he kept coming in. He was at a fast walk, but not a trot.
Right.
And my belief is he was checking the thermals. It was 11:37 in the day. I think he was checking the thermals.
It's probably starting to pull up.
On both sides of the ridges, and he was running the ridge top, checking the thermals if there was does bedded in the bottoms. That was what I was assuming, probably coming back close to his bed. And he might have got 55 yards, and I had a lever action 30-30 with a scope on it, and I shot him broadside, double lunged him. He turned and took off running right in front of me, and I'm just bleating at him, going nuts, trying to get him slow down because I was going to shoot him again. Shot him on a run again, and then kept barking. I was pretty much barking at this point. I probably sound like a goofball on a tree. And he run all the way around to my right side, and he was about to go off that other side of that ravine the wrong way. And I was just bleating like crazy, and he stopped for a split second. I double lunged him on the other side, and he just staggered for a second and hit the dirt.
Yeah. And
I was like, oh, thank goodness. I was like, he didn't go that pretty good. And then I realized I just shot my biggest buck.
Yeah, well, it was a good buck for sure, and it's cool how you remember all those details on something like that, man, and that's awesome. So when you said that buck come around, were you on a pretty steep slope?
So yeah, both sides. It was a I don't know if it's a finger ridge or the main ridge system, but it was a really, really steep ridge off both sides.
Okay.
And I was at the very tip of it, where it tips off into the bottom to one of the hubs.
Yeah.
And it was facing to the north, but it was a south jetting thing, if that makes sense.
Right. And this was during rifle season.
Mm-hmm. It was December 2nd.
So for us, that's about when we were seeing most of our up high on the mountain anyway. That seems like that was when we were seeing most of the rut activity.
Yeah.
So I think you're probably right. And that is something this year that I have really started paying attention to. You don't hear about thermals as much here for some reason. I guess it's just not been thought of.
Yeah.
But if you pay attention to the thermals, like anywhere up there. You know, you've got real steep ridges.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and your wind could be hitting you right in the face. But if you're on the bad side of that in the morning, and you're hunting above where you think he's at, I mean, you're just ruined because
Mm-hmm.
all your thermals are going down there.
Yeah.
The best way that I've found to watch it, and me and Will kind of tag team this when we hunt elk together, is one of us will have a puffer
Mm-hmm.
and one of us will have milkweed.
Yep.
And they will do two totally different things.
Yeah, they will.
You can watch the wind take the puff smoke, but if you drop a milkweed,
Yep.
it might go with the wind for a second, but you watch what happens once it just starts and it'll
Mm-hmm.
come right back. Always goes with the thermals.
Yep.
And that's something that I've really started paying attention to, not only hunting up there, but hunting on some private that we have, where I think these deer are bedding, not only where I'm hunting, but how I'm getting in there.
Mm-hmm.
Because looking at it now, I've been going about it the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've been coming in on the opposite side of a ridge I should have, and a lot of that I think is because it's easier.
Mm-hmm.
So just to give you an idea what I'm talking about, if I've got a northwest to southeast running ridge,
Okay.
bucks are bedding on this side, the northeastern side.
Okay.
Sun's coming up, hitting them. There's definite, no doubt, bedding area in there.
Mm-hmm.
Got pictures to prove that. So what I was doing was coming on the far end of the ridge, just coming right up the spine of the ridge,
Mm-hmm.
the northeast side or northwest side, and just walking the top.
Yep.
And by doing that in the mornings, what I was doing,
You're dropping
the
your
wind is
thermals.
good.
You're dropping
My
your thermals.
wind,
off.
I'm thinking the wind is in my face. It's blowing out of the south. It's hitting me good. I'm gonna be able to go at an angle and be
Mhm.
fine. But the thermals are just pulling
Mhm.
straight off in there, and I started noticing that I wasn't seeing deer at certain times, and I think that's why I was. And I had it documented. I used to keep a log.
Mhm.
I'd see no deer in the mornings, and I would come back and hunt those same places in the evenings, and would see deer.
Yep.
And it was because the thermals were doing totally opposite. I'm not saying right before. I'm saying when the thermals were starting to pull up out of it.
Yeah.
So when they were starting to rise. So this past year, what I started doing was I would circumvent that whole ridge and come up the back side of it,
Mm-hmm.
and I would go to 50, 100 yards below the top, and I would sit there and wait on the thermals
Yep.
to switch.
Yep.
And you know it's it and I'm not saying you can. I'm sure some people can. Some people are really good at it, but you can almost tell when the temperature hits a certain point to where you know it's going to start changing.
Yeah.
You
You spend enough time outdoors, you'll
Yeah.
start to, if you start paying attention.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
It's not as obvious as the wind hitting you,
Mm-hmm.
but you can kind of tell when it warms up a little bit and you drop a piece of milkweed and it starts going up.
Yep.
Then that's when I would finish going up to where I had a stand hung
Mm-hmm.
and was seeing a lot more deer. We
Yeah.
hunted on Thanksgiving last year in this one stand, that same place, and I went in there and doing that, and I think we seen 8 bucks that morning.
Yeah.
All of them come from that one bedding area.
Yeah.
If we'd been up there at daylight, or if I'd been up at daylight, rather, they wouldn't have seen a one of them because it would have pulled everything back off in those laurels.
Yeah, learning to figure that out. I think that was like a big thing this past year I was fortunate because I didn't have as much, I spent a lot of time outdoors younger, spent a lot of time, but I was raised by guys, like kind of old timers, and they
Yeah.
never did the thermals, they never did.
Right.
And
Nobody did around.
Yeah,
It
and-
was very rare to hear anybody say, and I'm not saying nobody did it, everybody did it wrong, but
Mhm.
I think they got, around here especially, you always heard, just go in there and hunt when you can hunt.
Yep.
Hunt where you
Yeah,
can
it was
hunt,
all
you know.
blue collar. That's what we were
Yeah.
raised by, the blue collar guys. You know,
Yeah.
you got Saturday mornings, and
That was it.
you go hunt all day Saturday, and you just
Mhm.
hunt where when you can. So I think that was a lot of this year was me learning, making all the mistakes. Hopefully to fast forward, I guess, is everybody wants to get all the mistakes out of the way and be a better hunter,
Yeah.
faster. But I'm hoping that's kind of what I did. Is I spent so much time in the woods, and then by the end of the season, I started figuring it out and
Yeah.
learning the thermals better. Because a lot of people are like, "Oh, a mature buck will never run with the wind to his rear," but that's what he was
Yeah.
doing to me, and the
Yeah,
wind
it's
was
not
blowing.
true.
Yeah, because he could. The way I see it though is he felt safe because nothing can sneak up behind him because he can smell it with the wind.
Mm-hmm.
He's looking in front of him, so he feels comfortable because he can see. Because it was a big open timber. It was
Yeah.
big woods. Southwest Appalachian Mountains, and so he could see. You could see almost 100 yards. There's a lot of trees,
Mhm.
but you could see pretty far. And then he had thermals from his left and right. So he's
Yeah.
technically 360 degrees. He can smell almost all that and see the last bit that he couldn't smell.
You're kind of in a hub right there. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a killer's place.
It just, I got lucky that I didn't go in there in the morning.
So, what you said about people usually saying that the buck won't go to wind up.
Mhm.
If it's one thing that I've learned is that the only predictable thing about a mature buck is that it's unpredictable.
Exactly.
Nathan Killen says they all have personalities,
Yep.
and that is 100%
Mhm.
accurate. I think we've seen deer this year just hunting, and so we've got a piece of private that's about 1,100 acres that we
Mhm.
hunt, and the bucks we seen on there, and just in a given day, you'd see 3 or 4 different bucks, and age-wise, they 2-year-old to 5-year-old.
Mhm.
During the rut, so we'll give you the week of Thanksgiving. We watched young bucks run around bumping does, and you think, well, maybe their does are starting to come in. Then you see an old buck 3 days later who has no interest in a doe.
Mhm.
But then you see another buck about the same age class who is very interested in does and chasing does and bumping does. But then you see a mature buck and he couldn't care any less.
Yeah.
They all have personalities, and they
Mhm.
say some of them don't rut. I think they probably aren't as aggressive at rutting.
Mhm.
They probably probably not going to pass up an opportunity.
Yeah.
So I think they all have different personalities, and I think if they're in a place where they feel safe
Mhm.
and they're used to being there and not being threatened, and they feel covered, they feel like they got everything coming toward. I think you're.
Mhm.
I'm not going to pass. If I'm a deer and I'm looking for a girlfriend, the winds just happen to be behind me, I don't care.
Yeah. That's
If
it.
it's in my bedroom, I'm going.
Yeah.
But again, I think there are other bucks that may be like that.
They're
that
more
may
cautious.
say, something's happened to
Mhm.
them, or it's just genetically they pay more attention to
Yeah.
the wind.
Absolutely.
And I think you can tell a lot about that type of deer you can get a feel for them by where they're bedding,
Mhm.
and that's another thing I've started trying to pay more attention to, and we'll get into that in a minute. But scouting in postseason
Mhm.
is looking at where the buck beds were at,
Yeah.
and how they're bedding and figuring stuff out, because you can tell. But when you find a group of doe beds together, but when you find that one lone bed in the middle of
Mhm.
something, that you can tell it's a buck bed. The this year I found I went into a place and said, I know for a fact there's probably going to be a buck bed on here, and went in there and found it. It was a very steep, off in a big ravine,
Mhm.
big steep slopes, with a little bench just about 20 yards below the top, 30 yards below the top. Grapevine thickets, mountain laurel,
Mhm.
but just one little bench that kind of ran around through there. And went on there and found where he'd been bedding, and he was bedding where he could see off, catch the thermals,
Yep.
and the wind. Our prevailing wind is
Mhm.
southwest, west, most of the time.
Yep.
The wind was coming right over his back,
Yep.
and he could lay there and smell it. And then I ended up figuring out which buck that was, through some trail camera pictures. But he was a really mature deer that we started seeing toward the end of the season. On the other hand, there's another mature deer there. And the place where he bedded, and he's bedded there for 2 or 3 years, is just off of one long spur off a main ridge,
Mhm.
and it just comes out to a point. The wind's not in his favor. He has the thermals in the morning, but you could sneak up and hunt that deer if you really. I mean,
Yeah.
you get lucky.
Mhm.
If he didn't see you coming in there, it may be
Yeah.
what he might be able to see pretty good.
Yeah.
But the wind he's facing, the wind is in his face,
Yeah.
or I'm sorry, at his back.
Yeah.
So so I think you can sneak up and hunt that
Yeah.
deer coming from a different way.
Especially if he's there during the early season.
Yeah.
Because his visibility is going to be a lot lower because
Yeah.
the green's still going to be on the trees.
So I might have got tongue tied on that, just not to confuse anybody with that last buck we're talking about. The wind where he would be bedding on that knoll, you could come from the way we would approach it. The wind would be in our favor, I guess.
Yeah.
Is the best way to say it.
Mhm.
He's not bedding in a place where it's going to be over his back a little bit, but the way you approach that is from the bottom to
Mhm.
get in there, and that's the only thing I can figure is like you said, you probably hunt him early season and catch where he's going, but he might be able to see it in the fall. And that may be why he's doing that. But to me, he's not being as cautious as this other buck who has got all his bases covered.
Yep.
And that's why he was our number one buck, and that's why we couldn't kill the thing.
Yeah.
And I figured out because we didn't know he was bedding there until after the season.
Yeah.
And man, you talk about feeling like a fool because that joker watched us walk in from that bed every morning.
Yep. They'll make you feel stupid. They will.
When we found that bed, and in the winter, hey, listen, post-season scouting is very valuable. When I was standing in his bed, I could look across that ravine and up on top of that other ridge, and I could see plain as day. If I would have been walking across through there, he could have seen us.
Yep.
And that's he could have watched us for about 150 yards, walk right up to our tree, and sit in it. And all he would have had to do be slip out the bench. So felt like fools after that.
Oh yeah.
But now we know that going into next year, and we can form a better plan to hunt that deer. But speaking of scouting, what are you doing right now? Are you getting ready to put some trail cams out, check some areas?
Yep. So I've done. I've already went and pulled. I put one trail cam out early season near where I killed that buck, but I ended up putting it. I put it up. So I put it up a stick high, but it was too soon, and all the green grew around it, so it wasn't a good spot. So just be aware. That's just like a little tip for your toolbox. If you do want to put them high, like I like to do a lot of times, if you do it early season, which I know a lot of people are pulling their cameras in the I guess the early spring, they're not setting them out. If you do that, just think of the foliage. It will grow up because that's kind of what happened to me. But I did. I went and pulled that, and then I started trying to do the Jake Bush method, like hunting the hubs and using the hub scrapes to learn where the bucks are moving and bedding at. So on that, I went to that hub where that buck was bedded over, and because I assumed the next biggest buck will probably move in there next year. Right. And because I think he was the little king of this area, because I mean, he had gray in his face. I would say he was at least 5+. I mean, I don't know. He was 10 with. He liked to fight too because his G3 on the right was broke off. He had a puncture in his eye. Like he was beat up. Yeah, he was. Buck. Yeah, he liked to fight. So,
that's what I'm talking about.
So I went down in that hub. Ended up getting poison ivy, which is awesome. Found a pretty decent scrape. I'm not sure if it's the hub scrape or not. Right. But I did hang a camera on that, and then pull that other camera. And I have. I'm trying to think. I have 4 or 5 other places that I already plan on going, and I'm going to try and hit the hubs real hard this year and see what I can do with them, because they make sense to me in the way my mind works and the way I think of thermals and the wind. Right. So I know there's plenty of different ways to kill a buck, plenty of ways to skin a cat. But some people are better at certain tactics than others. Yep.
And I think so. We're kind of cursed and blessed at the same time where we're at, because we can't mineral anything all year in our county, or there's 3 counties here that we can't. To me, but so we've got some property up in Wythe County up the road there that we can mineral, and that makes me a lazy hunter, or I would say a lazy scouter, because all I've got to do is take 50 pounds of mineral out, dump it, put a camera on it, and I get a pretty solid inventory on what's going on in the summer. You may not get, and I've come to realize this too, you may get a good buck picture once in a while, and that doesn't mean the buck's not in there. He's probably just not interested in the mineral. He probably doesn't like something about it. But using that, you're able to kind of get an idea of what you're looking at. Hunting here, it makes you a better woodsman, because you've got to figure out where you can put a camera. You can go throw it up on any old deer trail, but I mean, that's not going to. You're just mostly shot in the dark.
Yeah, mostly does and fawns and young bucks.
So by employing some different methods, which I have never tried this this kind of mock scrape method for a trail cam setup.
So I did it once, and that was last year. I have a very, very small piece of private. It's like 30 acres, if that, and it's local. And I tried a mock scrape, and I use the synthetic stuff because we can't use the
real stuff.
So I use the synthetic, whatever Tinks, whatever ones theirs is, and did it under a holly bush. Yeah. Because I knew it would stay green, the little leaves or whatever on it. And I had a wide 8-point. He was a younger buck, but he's a big buck, and he hit that mock scrape every south wind.
Really?
But it was like 3 in the morning.
See, that's good. You can figure out where he's bedding at right there.
Yep. But
and how to approach
what
that.
I think he was bedding off, because it's such a small piece of property. I think he's bedding off the property, and that's part of it. He has like just a huge loop of properties that he goes around, and he's just coming on mine in the middle of the night once season hit in. Now, he was spotted a couple times preseason in the daytime on my property, and as soon as season hit, I hunted him really hard, and I kind of wasted a little bit of time, too much time on him.
Yeah.
I'm trying not to hunt a picture next year.
Right.
Yeah, because that's kind of what I did. I got really excited. I was back, so
it's easy to do.
It is easy to do.
Man.
But I do have some cool footage, though, or good trail cam videos of him just turning that mock scrape up and peeing in it and everything. And he burned it up from October to December.
Right.
He burned it up. So
that is that's a good point. You got to pick, and that's it's hard. It's easier to find those big hub scrapes after the season than in season, because when they start making scrapes,
they're making them everywhere.
Yeah, they may not ever use that scrape again, but they'll hit that main hub scrape over and over and over. And so this year I've got to reading. I've got a with a manila rope.
Yep.
And I'm taking the manila rope, and I've got some in there, some synthetic dough. It's like a curiosity. It's not like an estrus or a pre-estrus. It's more of a curiosity type urine. I'm gonna hit it with that. Make a couple mock scrapes in a hub. It's just see what happens.
Yeah.
Probably put 2 cameras, one on one camera and one on another camera, just to kind of see. I'm going to put one on private where I know there's some bucks at, just to see how it works, because I'm already getting pictures up there. I just want to see if it'll draw them in.
See, I put mine. It was at actually the top of a little spine ridge.
Yeah,
and he locked it up there.
Yeah.
Now they made a more of a hub scrape lower.
Right.
But him and one other buck liked that top scrape. But he was the head honcho at that top scrape. I don't know. I think it ended up being in his path, and he was the first one to find it. So.
Yeah, I'm going to hang some tomorrow. I went and bought some manila rope at Rural King, and I've got some it's called Dotella. I'll turn you on to it here in a minute. Okay. But it smells pretty good.
We need to try some of that Troy Pottinger.
I've seen it's hard to get.
Yeah, I know.
It's hard to get. It's always
the scrape
sold.
Man out there.
It's always sold out.
Yeah, I know. He's the scrape legend when it comes to making mock straights and working them up. But
I'll tell you another thing I've thought about, and you mentioned it, hanging your camera on a tree and the foliage and stuff. It'd be hard to do this on National Forest, but I have really considered start carrying a T-post.
Yeah.
And get the T-post mounts or something put in, because you think we're so limited in some places. There may not be a good tree to put a camera on where I could just put a T-post in the bank and point it down at the, you know what I mean, on a bench or something.
It's not a terrible idea.
I've thought about doing that, and to me too, we have the bears.
I was gonna say, as long as the bear doesn't get away.
Well, see, I've got a mixed opinion on that too. I think that if the bear's trying to get the camera off the tree, I think if he just knocks the T-post over, he's not going to fool with carrying the T-post off.
Yeah, you're probably right.
I may be totally wrong, and if you see a bear running down the road with a T-post in his mouth with a camera on it, just holler at him. But I think I may eventually try that too.
They make those little T-posts though.
Yeah.
They're only like 4 feet, the smaller ones.
That'd be what you need, really.
Yeah, just a small one, just so it ain't so friggin' heavy.
Yeah.
They're not much longer than a long stick.
Yeah.
I mean, because like me, heck, I was carrying a stick in the woods with me anyway, to climb the tree and stuff.
I don't know what's happened this year that's different than the past, but so I keep those cameras out on our private all year. They stay out all year. And last year, the bears never messed with them, but they would kind of bump them.
Yep.
They would just nuzzle them a little bit. Well, this year, this spring, I've been getting pictures of bears every month, but walking right by it, never paying it a bit of attention. I don't understand it. I don't know what's different now. Some people say that maybe it's set in the woods so long they just don't smell it anymore, but they've got to smell the batteries.
Yeah.
There's no way they're not. But I about wonder if they just get used to it being there, or just don't pay it any attention.
They might, because I have a couple videos of mine. Because last year I only had like one or two cameras, so I was having to bounce around a lot. I've bought a lot more since last year, but I was bouncing them around a lot. So most people, they want at least a month inventory.
Yeah.
But where I had so little, and I hadn't had a lot of time where I was, because I'd moved right before I deployed, and I moved and bordered, and my house butts up to like close to 6,000 acres of national forest.
Right.
So I hadn't had time to scout it. So I was bumping cameras around like every week or 2 weeks.
Hey, there's potentially, that's good buck habitat back in there somewhere.
So I did see one really good buck deer, and he was rutting early, and it was during muzzleloader season.
Yeah.
And had him at 60 yards with a bow in the hand.
Oh yeah.
And couldn't hit him. And the doe caught once. She come around and she winded something. She wasn't too spooked.
Yeah.
She didn't like it though. She stopped, turned around, and bounded back off where she come, and he didn't even pay. All he did was just put his nose up, turn around, and follow her. But he was, Lord, that wasn't even half a mile from my house. It was close. It was real close to the house that day.
Right. I do like scouting this time of year, just to be out in the woods. But one to kind of just figure. It's good to be in there and just start figuring places out.
Yeah.
And that's something I've tried to implement now. Is I'm not trying to just look at easy places to scout, but more terrain scouting.
Yeah.
And using Spartan Forge makes that simple.
Oh yeah.
I know we've kind of shared some waypoints back and forth, but just looking for the terrain features that just look different, something that's different, like a little saddle on a ridge or a bowl in the side of a draw or something like that.
Yeah.
And so I looked at, you listen to people talk about that and talk about terrain features and hunting those types of places, and knowing, I think Nathan Killen's big on hunting bucks, those bucks bedding on the east part of the ridge and hunting them like that, or east facing slopes. And we went back and I was looking just over the past 4 or 5 years. And if you ever get bored, do this. Get on your whatever mapping system and look at where you've killed a good buck at on there in relation to what the terrain is doing.
Yeah.
And then look where you killed that, and then expand it out a mile and see if you can see any terrain features in there where the deer might have came from, where he might have been going. It's a little harder to do when they're chasing does, obviously.
Yeah.
But so I did that last year, and I looked, and there's a place up in up the state that we hunt, and I've shot a few good deer in there, and in the same spot, and it's one of the places where I know where I'm going every year, because that's where I always do pretty good. But I've never explored why it's a good spot. I've always just assumed, well, there's acorns in there. That's why they're in there. Well, it's not at all why they're in there, and I figured it out now after looking at it, and you can see why those deer come through there. It's because of it's a big thermal hub. They come in there to find the does and to wind check everything, or to thermal check everything. And the best, I never thought of it this way, and until it was explained to me. But up here in Wise, I was hunting a deer. Will knows about this deer. I was hunting a real tight rack 10-pointer. I passed on him during early bow season for some reason, because I thought he needed another year, and then watched the video, and I thought, man, you fool. Yeah, he's probably 135, 140 inches, but just real tall. He wasn't very wide, but man, he was massive.
Yeah.
And I passed on him, and I was hunting another big deer. And I was making the mistake of hunting the scrapes. So I had just to kind of give you an idea, real steep pitch slope, had a tree stand on it, and I was hunting a road, just an old bench road that wrapped around a holler, and it had 3 or 4 scrapes in it within 100 yards. And I could never figure out why those deer would not come down that road. And I was like, what in the world's going on? So I went to, or Nathan Killen came to a little seminar thing I listened to. He was talking about the thermals. I was like, son of a gun, I wonder if that buck is thermal checking those scrapes.
Yeah.
So I went and found a scrape in the road, went straight to the top of the ridge, spine of the ridge, put a camera there. Nothing there, just top of the ridge.
Yeah.
And sure enough, I was sitting in my tree stand and got it. What picture went off, and he was standing there that afternoon, like 1 o'clock in the evening, standing there looking off in there, and I dropped it, and the thermals were pulling straight up. So he was thermal checking those scrapes, and then coming out and thermal checking me, and knowing something was bad, so he wasn't coming off in there. And but because of that, I didn't end up getting a shot at the deer, but I ended up getting an opportunity at it. Like 2 weeks
experience.
later.
I mean, that's just as important as about anything.
Yeah. So with that knowledge, I moved to stand up on the spine of that ridge where I thought he'd come check it, and
Yeah.
it was perfect and I never hunted it unless it was midday.
Yep.
And that's another thing you hear is a lot of people say, you hunting too late, you hunting past 10 o'clock, it's time to go get lunch.
No, go in midday. That's
Yeah.
when you move in.
Right.
And I learned that last year. That was a big thing I had to learn.
Especially if you're hunting like that setup.
Mhm.
If you're hunting like where your thermals are going to be just perfect and they're pulling up. So on the spine of that ridge, I went and sat, and here, sure enough, he came up over the top and stood there at 35 yards, but it's just way too thick, and I couldn't get a shot. Man, he was a big deer.
Yeah.
If it was, I think it was muzzleloader season. If I'd had a muzzleloader, I could have killed him. And
Yeah.
I seen him again at the end of that year. He's a good deer now. He's still alive.
Oh,
It's been like 3 years ago. He's a big deer.
He's probably a bruiser now.
Yeah, he's smart, man.
Yeah.
I just, one of these days maybe he'll slip up, but that's what I'm saying. There's so much to learn about these things. It's every day, and like I said, we've been hunting them our whole lives, but we've been hunting them wrong some too. But I won't say wrong. I think we've just been doing it a different way,
An old school way. Yeah.
Yeah, and so and I agree with a lot of what that Cody DeQuisto guy says. I like how he's not worried about bumping a deer out of an area.
Mm-hmm.
To an extent, I think it's terrain specific.
Yeah.
And pressure specific.
Mm-hmm.
Like here, I think where the public is we hunt is not pressured as much anymore. You probably get away with it a little easier.
Yeah.
Some of the private that I hunt that's got 10 guys on it, I don't know if you're going to do any good.
That's what's crazy about a lot of these leases now. It's like they're just as pressured, if not worse, than some of the public.
Right.
Because the public, I found the limit of the public. There's like 3 or 4 big chunks that I hunt, and I kind of found the limit on all of them last year of where people stopped.
Yeah.
And where I went past.
Yeah.
And that's when I started having my good encounters, except for the one that was close to the house, but that was during
Yeah.
that was early rut. Like that doe was probably early rut doe, so that was kind of a rare opportunity there. But it was still early season, and that's why I like to be in the woods, because there was a whole lot less people out early season.
Well, we don't have the bow hunters like we used to.
Yeah.
We pulled the numbers on this last year, and it was unreal how low it just in this county how many bow hunters compared to like 1999, 2000, 2006. The bow hunter numbers declined. I mean, they're shooting down. But you drive up to Ohio, a 3-hour drive north of here, packed.
Oh, really?
Public's packed. I mean, not like overbearing, but you're going to see people in the woods. But they're putting out big deer too. But there's just, we're lucky in this part of the state, especially because they don't have the bow hunters.
Yeah.
And I think it has got a lot to do. It's generational, I think. I think that it does require. First, I don't think people realize when we're talking about that we have more terrain here than we do when we go hunt in Colorado. We have elevation there, but we have got more terrain here, without a doubt.
Yeah.
I mean, because you can go, if you pull up on any piece of public mountain here, you're going to be faced with some pretty steep slopes and some gnarly vegetation.
Yep.
It's not. I mean, you got everything that could make it hard. Mountain laurel.
Yes.
We don't have the blowdowns like they have, but we've got timber that's falling and all that stuff. But it's a different ball game, man. And I think that people have gotten lazier on dealing with that.
Oh, they have.
And that's why I think you do good. You'll see people every now and again, but you go deep, you're not going to see them.
Yeah. Well, where I've been, I don't even think that buck was hunted.
Right.
Not to give away my spot, because if I say too many of the details, you could probably figure
I've
it out.
got a notepad head over here.
Yeah, that's but I don't think that buck had honestly been hunted before, just of where he was at and how deep he was.
Yeah.
Because it was so difficult to get to, and most people are not willing to go like that. And it was easier because I did have a rifle, so I do move more with a rifle in my hand than I do with a bow. I still move a lot with the bow, but I mean, by the end of that day though, just packing them out, because I wanted to, everybody, like when you get a big buck, dragging them out, when like that big buck in the bed of your truck just looks awesome.
Yeah.
You know, that's kind of the thing. I had to pack most of them out.
Yeah.
And by the end of the day, I had 15 miles is what my watch had recorded, and I I mean,
Killed out.
I ran out of water. I had muscle cramps. Like, it was now, but I've changed everything though, because now in my kill kit I keep a liquid IV.
Yeah,
because
that's a good idea.
So as I'm cleaning it, whether I'm gutting it or quartering it up, I can go ahead and start drinking on one of those.
Yeah.
For whatever I'm about to do, drag or pack.
Mm-hmm.
And then also I included some of those Aquafora water purification drops. The drops, there's two 1 ounce bottles, and because most places we have, they have good mountain streams. Yeah. And so I got it solely for that, so I could replenish my water, so I wouldn't run into what I did last year.
Hey, I will tell you, man, those liquid IVs are money.
Mm-hmm.
We when Helton turned me on to them when we out in Colorado, that dude sweats. He pours the sweat. But he goes through water like nobody's business. And at the end of every day, we would always pop one of those liquid IVs, just rehydrate before bed.
Yep.
Man, that dude
it makes you feel like $1 million
bucks, 100%. I just ordered some of those Mountain Ops Hydrate.
I want to
packets.
try those.
Yeah, they were out of everything, but they had peach mango. I wanted it so bad, but I had to get strawberry coconut.
Oh, that sounds good too, though.
Yeah, I'm going to try
the
those
strawberry
out.
liquid IVs are one of my favorites.
Oh yeah,
They're
delicious, man. We poured out. That's like I almost look at it as dessert after eating at the end of the day. But you're right. Will packed this buck out of High Knob this year, and his dad said, "Never do it another way."
Yeah,
it's so easy,
it's so much better.
Especially back in there.
Mm-hmm.
You can drag one out. It's going to take you. Well, and I mean, what's the point, really?
Yeah.
You know, you can do everything you need to do. Even if you're going to mount it, you can do everything you need to do in the woods.
Yep.
And make it easier on yourself.
Yep. I will say a tip. Go to your taxidermist, whoever you want to use as your taxidermist, and maybe your backup taxidermist if he's full. Ask him how he wants you to skin the buck.
Yeah.
Because some of them are different, and that's what I didn't do.
Yeah.
So that was the only thing is like I packed out his hindquarters and his tenderloin and his back straps. And then I ended up having to carry out, because it was easier to carry drag his front half, because I
bet you look like a savage coming through the...
I was
got half a deer.
Yeah, it was. I literally carried out half a deer carcass because I didn't know how to skin the front. Because when I killed him, as soon as I walked up on him, I was like, I'm getting him mounted. But I've never mounted deer. I've never killed one that big, so I didn't know how to skin him correctly, and I was like. The only way I knew how was to do it like I've watched people do elk, but I'm like, that's probably not the right way for a buck. A whitetail, it's a lot. I know they're similar, they're both deers-like animals, but the taxidermist weird, and it's a good thing I didn't, because my taxidermist says it's not how he wanted to do it, he wanted it done. So that's one of the things that made it a lot harder than what it had to be.
Check with your taxidermist. That's a good point.
Yeah, because they might be a little different.
So I've quit, I might just be weird, but I don't have any deer down here. I've got some at grandparents' house, but I've about just started doing European mounts now.
Mm-hmm.
I like fooling with those, and I'll take some. If I kill I've done this a few times, and I about hate it on a couple, but if I've shot a nice 8-pointer or something, there's been a few times I thought, man, I look good with rattling horns, and I saw its brow tying off.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, man, anymore, if I just take a picture with it.
Yeah.
And can remember what that hunt was like, and see, if I have something to remember it by, I really enjoy that. Not saying I'm throwing away any horns at all, because they're all staying here, but they all have meaning. And the more you have to suffer, I think, to get something like that, so you'll remember that forever.
Yeah,
I would have loved to seen you just walking through the mountains carrying half a deer carcass by the head. It was probably the reason nobody hunting up there anymore.
Yeah.
The gargantuan ripped a deer.
It was wild. It was, I don't know. There was bear all over that place too, because I'd done a deer camp there by myself earlier in November, and that whole holler was full of bear too. Yeah. So, but I didn't want to gut him on the ridge that I killed him on, because I realized that was his bed. So I tagged him and then drug, and I swear he had to be on the hoof close to 200 pounds.
Yeah,
big-bodied deer. He was big bodied, and I drug him to the edge of the ravine. Then he drug me to the bottom. And I gutted him. I started cutting him up down at the bottom, because I didn't want to do it in the bed. Because, like I said, the next biggest buck hopefully will move into that bed, and I can hunt him this year. Which is like what I said, where I moved that camera down there on that scrape. But done that, and my wife bought me a deer cart for Christmas, because that was the beginning of December. Because I struggled so bad getting him out. She bought me a deer cart.
Hey, that's not bad. Hey, my buddy Dean he's got a deer cart, and he went. He doesn't do anything in moderation. So he was looking for a deer cart, and he was like, "Yeah, you can go down to Rural King, grab you one." He's like, "Oh no, nope."
He wants a monster.
I want one that goes on one of those Rambo bikes. I was like a heavy duty pull behind deer cart. He's like, "Yes, sir." So he sure did. He went and bought one. He rigged it up. It's got backpack straps on it, dude. It's
that's legit.
I mean, but you can. That thing's got big wheels and everything.
Yeah.
You can drag that thing over a mountain.
Oh, that's cool.
So Helton, I'll tell you a quick story about this. This place upstate we hunt there. We'd killed deer in there, and to drag them out of there, man, is a pain.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's no matter if you go off the holler or you stay on the top of the ridges and just work the saddles.
Yeah.
It's a headache getting deer out of there. So I'd warned Helton and Dean, and we went in there, and this was Helton hadn't killed a buck in years. I guess this was before we went to Colorado. No, after we went to Colorado.
Okay.
And I was like, "Yeah, we're going up here muzzleloader. You come with us. It's a honey hole. You'll probably see some deer." Man, that's a whole nother episode there. But I missed the biggest buck of my life that day, and man, it got killed like a week later by the neighboring property owner. It was 168 inches. I missed him with a muzzleloader.
Oh, goodness.
But that evening I passed on an 8-pointer that was 140s because I thought that, you've heard people say you should have been there yesterday.
Yeah.
That was yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
From daylight to dark, there were bucks busting does all through there. And we were just like in there that day that it was all happening.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, that buck's going to come back through here. I know he is. But he never did. And I passed up on a nice buck. And he went right to my right. And I'll get to the point of the story in a minute. But he went off to my right where Hilton was at. And I was like, "Hey, dude, there's a buck headed your way." I watched him. He turned and went up the ridge. And I was like, he ain't going that way. And about 5 minutes later, I heard boom. And I was like, Hilton said, "I killed a big buck." And I was like, "Oh, which one was it?" I wonder, because it wasn't that dude. I wonder if it was the one I was at.
Yeah.
But anyway, long story short, it was a really old, gnarly deer. Age is like 7.5, 8-year-old deer.
Oh, yeah.
He was just done, know, blunt rope. I mean, he was done for. He wasn't even running does. He was out picking grass in the field. But long story, we went and got the cart, and I told Dean, I said, this is going to be more work than what it's worth. We got it back there, loaded that deer in the cart, and it took us 5 minutes to get to the truck. I was like, dude, it's on average 2 hours. And we just busted it with that thing. It took all the work out of it. So deer carts are handy, man. I will say that. But
I'm going to try and rig mine because I use my mountain bike to access a lot. Yeah. Just because it's quicker and quieter a lot of times.
Oh, yeah.
And I did get they make a little ATV hitch mount for that deer cart that I bought. I think I got it from Sportsman Guide. Yeah. I bought it too, and I'm going to try and mount it up some way or rig it up some sort of way, but I haven't done that yet.
What else are you doing right now to prepare for season? I know you're working out and shooting, and you're fiddling with arrows every day.
Yeah,
you've got more arrow configurations than anybody, I think.
Yeah, I have the knock-on sample pack, and I have arrows in every, like you said, fletched every way. Some are right fletched, some are left fletched. I did decide though, I'm going with the AE Max, the Hunters. Yeah, Max Hunters. And I bought
those are the closest to the iron wheels, aren't they?
I ended up buying the iron wheel ones. That's going to be on my hunting setup, I think. Anyway. Yeah. So that's what's on my target.
Might change tomorrow.
Yeah, that's what's on my target arrows. I got some methods, the method ZMRs, the micro diameters they have the AE26s on them, 4-fletched, but I'm probably going to strip them off and fletch them with 3-fletch to the left with the iron wheels. That's my goal. Yeah. Iron wheel fletchings, and then I need to try to get the iron wheel single bevel to the left because I bought to the right. Oh, okay. But I'm still shooting zebra strings. Yes. Yeah. I'm still shooting zebra strings, and they clock left. So that's probably going to be my whitetail setup, is those methods.
So you're going to shoot a single bevel?
Mm-hmm.
This will be my first year shooting a single bevel.
Okay.
But I shoot the ABB strings.
Yeah.
So mine are Right.
Are you shooting the Helix broadheads or the
Helix?
Okay.
Yeah, I just ordered 3 more of them.
Okay.
So I have 7. I'm going to see how they do in Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
But and again, I've not even shot them yet. They're
Mm-hmm.
still in the pack. They look deadly.
Oh, then Helix
Yeah.
look awesome.
Just a chunk of razor sharp steel going through something. But I've got some iron wheels too.
Mm-hmm.
So the only thing I worry about them is they're vented, and I don't know if they're going to make a. So I hear a lot of people say they whistle and stuff.
Okay.
I don't buy a lot of that. At 20 yards, I don't care if it's whistling or not.
Yeah,
You
that's
know what I mean?
yeah, it's so fast. I mean,
Yeah.
I know whitetails do jump, especially the older they are, but
Yeah.
like you said, at 20 yards,
It don't matter.
yeah.
I think. I think you've got plenty of options to choose from.
I know. That's why I got to figure that out.
Those iron wheel vanes are. I don't know what material they made those out of, but dude, those things they feel phenomenal.
Oh yeah.
And if you just spin check them in your hand, dude,
Mm-hmm.
they got good spin.
Yeah, they zip real well.
Those are on my elk arrows.
Yeah, me and you both, and then the bow wise, me and you both shoot the face 4. We both ended up with the solid black.
Yeah.
I kept the zebra strings. You're shooting the ABBs, and then comes to other stuff. I'm probably running that Novik stand.
Yeah.
And I use a saddle instead of a harness.
Yeah.
That's just what
I tried that stand out today, and I'm a fan.
Yeah, it's pretty
fan.
sweet. I like that a lot. I got a Predator platform too, and I did the saddle thing last year. I did both. I move a lot more in the saddle.
Do you feel like you sway?
I do.
Okay.
Which
I feel like I'd do that.
I'm
too.
I'm a moving guy. Like I move. I'm always moving, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just a hopper kind of guy.
So would you do good hunting like the Quisto guy says, hunting like 8 feet off the ground?
So I do hunt really low though.
Yeah.
But I had to go lower. I had to switch the tree stand to go lower.
Yeah.
And exactly what Cody DeQuisto says. And I started implementing what he did, and I can sit still as a board if I'm in a tree stand.
Right.
But as soon as the only time I got busted last year, and like I said, I spent a lot of time in the stand. The only time I got busted was in a saddle, and not down in saddles. Not saying you can't stay still. I know I don't want people coming at me with pitchforks and stuff, but me personally, I moved around too much for it. You do get a lot of shot opportunities, but me with the saddle and the tree stand, I can still shoot behind the tree because I can stand up, and if the worst come to worst, it's behind the tree, I can stand up and lean away from the tree just like a saddle can.
You've kind of got the best of both worlds there. With
Yeah.
that. And I like that. That's a good. I've seen other people do that too.
A lot of dudes dubbed it like the hybrid setup.
Yeah.
I didn't make that
like
term
that.
up. That's what a lot of people call
like
it.
that.
But I enjoyed it more, and then that's why I killed that buck out, which I had a rifle, so it was a little bit easier, but he would have came within bow range too, would kill me.
Yeah.
All that time I put in the tree with a bow, and then that big buck finally was coming into bow range, but shot him with a rifle, and then I'm going to do that. I've been scouting, started getting in the woods, setting cameras. I got 4 more stealth cams on the way. They had a good deal. I want to do that, and then shooting, and then working out all the time, which is for work and for
It's necessary.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, man. I've got to where, if I don't for a couple days, I get in the mood, man. She makes me go to the gym.
Yeah.
She makes me do something because I get grouchy. I don't know if it's good or bad. But
Well, it's probably
better.
for the best in the long way. That's what I'm doing it just for work, because we both need to do it for work, but two, it helps us, here. Because if I wasn't in the shape I was in, like I struggled with getting that buck out.
Yeah.
If I wasn't in as good a shape as I was, it would have been 10 times harder.
You're right.
And then also, I want to be doing the same thing with my grandkids.
Yeah.
So I'm doing it for like longevity, just like Dan Staten says.
Yeah.
For longevity, that's what I'm trying to do. I want to do this stuff when I'm 60, 70 years old.
I'm with you. We talked about this the other day. Me and my wife did, and that's the main thing for me is, you see people in their 50s and 60s who just can't get out and do it anymore. And that's the 50s and 60s. That's when I want to be doing it all the time.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's it. That's what. And I know there's a lot of old timers who are like, "Oh, you won't do it when you hit 30." Well, I'm still doing it. You won't do it when you hit 40. Well, I guarantee I'll still be doing it, and then so on and so on. It's just a different, like you was talking about, generational. Yeah. Our generation's different, and some are leaning. I feel like more have leaned our way than the kind of the fitness and longevity. than they did back then.
Yeah.
But times are different. Times have changed, but I think a lot of it's for the good too, though.
You know, I think too. There's a lot of people that are not in our line of work, but are starting to get into hunting and starting to get into this type of hunting, and they're seeing that I'm changing my lifestyle to adapt to this type of, because I like getting back here and doing this.
Yeah.
But I need to be able to do it. So that's encouraging to see, and I'm not saying to hunt here you don't have to have rock hard 6-pack abs and boulder shoulders, but you need to be able to walk around the woods without getting outbred. You know what I mean?
No kidding.
It'll help you. And another to bring another point up, the more in shape you are right now, and can maintain that during the season, you're not going to sweat as much. You're not going to freeze to death when you get to the stand in December when you've burnt up going to the tree stand. And I listen, and I know you've heard of him too, and I've brought him up a few times, but Nathan Killen was talking in that Mobile Hunter Roadshow podcast. Listened to it last year. And, he's saying he don't work out, he don't lift weights, but he is busting it in the mountains all year long. And, he said, I don't sweat hardly ever. I hardly ever sweat. He talks about the miles he covers in postseason, during season. That shows you, man, you just get out and pound the ground and put miles on your boots. That's doing something.
Yeah. I mean, that's like Steve Rinella. Everybody knows him.
Yeah.
He's a skinny, he's skinny as a rail.
Yeah.
But I guarantee that dude will outwalk me in the mountains any day of the week. And that's just because that's what he does year round. He's always out there doing it. So
I think, and we're doing, like you said, we're training for role specific stuff at work too. Yeah. I know you do a certain workout and I do a certain workout. The thing that I found, and I'm sure it's the same with yours, is a lot of the workouts that I'm doing fit both roles.
Oh, they do.
You can, you get the same thing out of pushing a sled. Man, I'm telling you that I hate that thing right now, dude. Pushing a sled for 500 yards and pulling it for 500 yards. That's the same. You get it for the same benefit for hunting and law enforcement.
Yep.
And I'm where too. I don't want. And I'll tell you what gets me with law enforcement. It's not that I'm worried about me. Like, I hope that I don't get out of breath on this. It's I don't want to be the guy who can't get my buddy out.
Exactly.
I don't want to be that guy. Sorry I couldn't get him out back to safety because I'm too out of shape.
Yep.
I'm not going to. That's not going to happen.
We got too many things going against us. Why put your own body against you? If you can make your body a unit, make it a unit.
Right.
And like you said, we don't look like no bodybuilders out here, but I guarantee we can. We
about broke some branches doing some pull-ups.
Yeah, but we can do some pull-ups. We can get over a wall. We can get over a fence. I guarantee you and I can drag each other, quite a few yards if we needed to, and that's what's important,
We could have implemented that in that last round of shooting there. No, you're right, and that in turn too is it's going to help you get up a ridge, carry a tree stand, climb up ladder sticks. That you talk about core strength.
Yep.
You will test your core strength when you're hanging a lock on.
Yep.
And you're 16 feet up in a tree trying to work with your sticks and work with your stand and then get up there and lock your stand in. You're engaged. Your core is engaged the entire time. And that's why there's not a workout session that I do where I don't have some core engagement and quads every single day that I'm working out. And it pays off in the end. And I'll tell you what, when it hit me was like 2 years ago when I was trying to hang a stand and I got done. I sat in the stand and was soaking wet, and I was like, "What the crap, man?" I was like, "This ain't even that hard."
Yeah.
And I was like, "You've got to make an adjustment, big time, dude, because you're sitting here pouring a sweat over this. Something's going on." So I did, and it's all and it's all in your head, really. I mean, you can change whatever you're wanting to do. You just have to make the decision to do it.
Oh yeah.
I've read a couple of books and I mentioned them on here before. Have you heard of that Michael Easton? Michael Easton. He wrote a book called Comfort Crisis.
Okay, I've heard of the book.
It's a great book. He was on a Mountain Tough episode too.
Okay.
Great. He was the gist of it is he talks about how he just all of a sudden decided he wanted to start hunting, so he went on a 30-day Alaskan backcountry hunt with Donnie Vincent.
Oh, I love Donnie Vincent.
Incredible book. But, he was talking about we got to quit being comfortable.
Yeah.
And, he brings up a lot of stuff in there that I realized, like, I don't know about this, and I tried it, and I was like, dude's 100% right.
Yeah.
We don't have to eat gosh almighty, we're going to go on a rabbit hole here. But you don't, the scheduled eating is a joke to me.
Oh, yeah.
To me, who decided we eat breakfast at 7:30, 8 o'clock? Who decided lunch is at noon? Who decided dinner's at 5? If you can take and get away from that mind, depending on what you're doing, of course. Yeah. And I was like, eat when you're hungry. Mm-hmm. And then you look at the history of people, man, we didn't wake up 300 years ago and go, all right, who's scrambling eggs?
Yep.
We was like, we got to go find something to eat.
You were usually active before you ate.
Correct.
And you eat when you found food.
Yeah.
And you usually were hungry by that time.
Right.
That's why I try to do. I'm the same way. Which I usually am hungry as soon as I get up, so I ain't gonna lie, I do probably eat a pretty good breakfast. But,
I'm with you there, man. I go in phases.
Yep. But I eat a lot during the day. Yeah. I eat a lot of stuff. And then usually my lunch and dinner might not be huge meals, but it's because I ate probably, I always call it second breakfast.
Yeah.
I usually eat a second breakfast.
You're a brunch guy.
Yeah, and then I'll eat lunch, and then I usually eat something before supper, and then I eat supper, and then I try not to eat too late because that's usually not good for most people's metabolism. So I try not to eat super late at night. Maybe try to take like a protein shake or something like that, or just drink a little bit of extra water, and then just consuming a bunch of water.
Mm-hmm.
That's really good for. There's nobody that's going to hurt.
No, you're right. The I did that, and I started it back in January. I did the 75 hard thing, and I'm not tooting my horn at all. I'm just saying anybody can do this if I can do it. You can change your lifestyle, but if you need to. Not saying everybody needs to. Me and Zack are just talking.
Yeah.
Y'all are just listening at this point, I guess. We're just having a conversation, kind of ranting. But, so I was like, I'm going to try this. And I'll tell you, you mentioned about the water. Drinking a gallon of water a day absolutely surprised me how difficult it was at first. But by the end of it, reminded me how incredibly necessary it is.
Yeah. About
how much better you feel. Just to tell you how. So I switched to like a paleo diet for that program. I did minimal, low impact workouts. And dude, I dropped like 30-some pounds in 75 days.
That's awesome.
I did lose some muscle mass with that. But my mental clarity was better. I could get around a lot better, and killed it in the mountains. Yeah. At postseason, I was not getting tired. I was doing pretty good.
Heck yeah.
But we got to quit getting in the mindset of like, I hear it all the time. There's a difference between listening to your body and then making it an excuse.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I kind of feel like I need to take a break today. Well, no, you don't. You will know when, like, if you go, like, I went to the gym before I started working out and been like, dude, this is a bad idea.
Yeah.
This is a bad idea. Go walk on the treadmill.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Don't just say,
I'm not going to go at all.
I need this, and gosh almighty, I need to take a rest day for my mental health. I guarantee if you go to the gym and you bust it, your mental health's going to be 100 times better by the time you're done.
I think Jocko says it best when it comes to rest day. He's like, okay, you need a rest day? That's fine.
Do it
tomorrow.
Yes.
And then he said by the time you get to tomorrow, guess what? You probably won't need it. And those days, and I try to implement his style with that. And I have noticed, like, once I finally need one, I do an active recovery day. Yeah. And that's what I'll do. And I'll still do something. Like you said, walk on a treadmill. Take your wife and kids out for a walk. Or I like a foam roller. I'm a big foam roller guy. Yeah. And I'll roll out. And my little 3-year-old, he thinks it's wrestling time when we do that. So I usually end up working my core and posterior because he's, like, beating me to death when I'm rolling out. But I'll roll out for 20, 30 minutes. Some rollout sessions I'm so sore I'm sweating by the end of them.
Oh yeah. But I'm with you, man.
But I'm a sweater too, though. You talking about getting better shape not to sweat. I don't think I'll ever be that way. I pour the sweat all the time.
I've never seen anybody sweat like Hilt does, dude. Buckets. But Will doesn't sweat that bad, and that dude, man, he gets around the mountain pretty good. Yeah. I mean, you know, he'll get upset with me sometimes just because we're going up into some areas that are. I mean, you could probably take an easier route. Not I'm talking about not terrain wise, but just vegetation wise.
Yeah.
But he keeps up with me good, man. He gives me a hard time, but he does really good. Get to where, you know, and so Tyler's my brother-in-law just started hunting. He's getting around the mountain 100 times better than he was when he first started.
That's good.
But he's in the mountain more now,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, you get in the woods and you get in this type of terrain, your body's you're going to have to.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you just adjust. And he may not even be meaning to, but
Yeah.
by getting in the woods and walking and stuff, his subconscious saying, "You're going to do this. We're getting better at this."
Yeah.
This to tell you a story on him. This spring, he killed his first turkey. Awesome hunt. But when we walked down into where this turkey was at, he said, walking down, he said, "I'm going to hate coming back out of here."
Oh yeah.
I mean, because it's just like it always is here, straight up and down.
Yeah.
And so he killed the turkey. We got back up to the top, and he never missed a step. You know, he was right on my heels.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Dude, that wasn't bad at all." And I was like, "Man, that's pretty steep terrain. You just came up, you know." And
Yeah.
so you're getting better at it. But he's doing great, and everybody's just it's getting good. Going to Colorado with us. We're gonna have a good trip out there, and that's kind of the predicament I'm in right now. The other day I said I'm in that gray area of preparing for elk hunting and being fired up for whitetails at the same time. It's like there's not enough time to do everything. You know what I mean?
They're back to back. You know, I can imagine that would
It
be
is.
rough.
It is nice to come back and only have a week left for deer season, though.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a good trip. I'm excited. You'll have to plan on going out there with us one year.
Yeah, we'll definitely make it happen.
Well, we'll wrap it up. You got anything else?
I don't think so. We could stay here and talk for another hour or two.
I know, man. That we could talk about the physical aspect of the hunting stuff for another hour and a half, I bet.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. That and gear between those two, that's
Yeah.
my jam.
Now, Will is a gear guy.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, big. Now we'll have to get him in here. Cody does a lot of gear stuff too. Tyler's a gearhead too, man. That dude comes up just for somebody that started to hunt.
Mm-hmm.
Man, he comes up with some stuff that like that's brilliant idea stuff that
Yeah.
he gets. He sent me something the other day. It's like a Vime Outdoors makes it for reheating meals. It's called a lunchbox. Oh, it's brilliant, dude. He's like, "You think we need this?" I said, "Yes, 2 of them."
That's awesome. That's I use their game bags.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's whose game bags I use. They're pretty sweet. But I mean, like I said, I'm a gear nut too. Everything I try to do is lighter and simpler.
Yeah.
So by the end of season, I mean, usually I can just the whole reason I set up my tree stand this year, I put a tree stand suspension system on it, so I can literally walk in with nothing but a water bottle and the stand on my back, and then if I have extra layers, just rolled up on that. Everything else I need is going to fit in either in a hip pouch or in my pockets.
Yeah.
I literally am trying to get away from a pack altogether, and then just keep a frame pack in the truck, and just take in what I need to kill the deer.
Yeah.
And then if I kill it, then I can go back out and get either deer cart, pack, a pack out
Right.
pack, whatever I need. So that's my new goal this year. And then I really want to get a big bow buck, maybe Pope and Young. I don't know if I'll get that or not, but that's my big
Well,
dream goal.
I know
this
we've
year.
got a couple of places picked out where it's potential.
Yeah,
There's some potential.
yeah,
areas.
we got to get there and get some cameras up too.
So, all right. Well, we'll wrap it up, man. Thank you for coming and hanging out and talking with us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.